All right, welcome to our Forging Mighty Sons podcast. And today I have a very special guest. Um, he's very influential in my life, in my business life, me as a man, as a father. He is a founder of a movement called the Odyssey, and he has great stories about his background, his life in the DEA or Special Task Force or something called Man of War, the infamous Crucible. Lots of experience, a true example of a father and businessman. And I thought it would be very fitting to have him on the show. And it's an honor for me to have him here with us. So please welcome Rafa Conde.
Martin, is an honor to have me on. Come on, man. You're a great dude. It's an honor for me to be on your podcast.
Thank you, Rafa. And from the time I've known you, you're a man of your word. You have very strong values. And as a husband, as a father, I just want the dads here on our show just to get a better idea of who you are and why did you create the Odyssey experience or the rites of passage for men and sons? Like, why did you create it?
Yeah, so my background goes, martial arts has been huge part of my life, 45 years training in different styles of martial arts. Man, it's been a very interesting road. I was a Wall Street broker for about 12, almost 13 years. And I did some great things on Wall Street. And one day, something just hit me when I saw 9/11 happen here in the United States, and it touched me deeply. And I started seeing the police officers and the firefighters all run towards the sound of falling buildings and all sorts of craziness. And so many people died during that event. And actually, it's funny because today is the day before we celebrate,
Mhm.
or should I say, I don't want to say celebrate, that's the wrong word. We remember all those who, man, died valiantly with courage. Uh, but in some ways, you know, for me, that was a transition in my life when I saw that happen, right? It's a day where I go back now and it's a very solemn day because, man, you know, so many lives were lost. But I remember saying to myself, I need to serve for a higher purpose. I need to do something great with my life. I need to really go out there and help people and connect. So a few years later, I'm a police officer working at one of the most violent cities in the United States. I went from being a Wall Street broker making almost $800,000 a year to making $38,000 a year as a police officer, narcotics agent, SWAT operator, did all that good stuff. Most of my career was narcotics undercover. And I was also honored to be part of the cadre in the police academy. So this is really where it all started.
Mhm.
I have been working in the police academy for about a decade, and I started to see the men that were walking through and applying for jobs as police officers. I started to see a weakness in these men. And boy, um, it hit me because keep in mind, we were teaching these men that warrior spirit to really have that survival instinct, the police officer mindset, being aware, having keeping your head on a swivel in very dangerous environments. Well, uh, I go back and I'm thinking, what really made the switch? Well, one of my friends came up to me and says, look, you should do a podcast. You should go out there and start talking about the warrior mindset, about the warrior philosophy, not just about masculinity, but what happened to the warrior spirit in a man. And one thing led to another. I started a podcast that was very successful. It's still going on today. And then the next thing is I started really studying the how men are in our day and age. I really started seeing the connection between father and son, how critical that connection was. So we built the Crucible. It's a very difficult program. It's about building stronger men and really living by that warrior life. And then from there, we grew something called the Odyssey. The Odyssey program is a very powerful program that connects fathers and sons. And we need this in our society more than anything else. We we have done so many studies, we have metrics, analytics to show that there is a huge disconnect between a father and a son. And I'm not just talking about in relationship, I'm talking about mindset. I'm talking about the way that they interact. And I believe that a program was needed really to bring back that sense of manliness, that sense of honor, that sense of connection between father and son.
Hmm.
So this is how we came about the Odyssey, and it's been growing very, very strong all over well, Latin America, now Canada, of course,
Yeah.
in the United States. And for us, it's a very powerful program, and I like to say it's also a very emotional program because when you really start seeing how the relationships and the connection between these fathers and sons build inside the Odyssey, man, there's not one Odyssey that I haven't been teary-eyed.
Mhm.
Very deep, very deep. So this is what the Odyssey is about, and for me, it's one of those programs where I am hoping, I believe that it'll continue to grow and will continue to really make a little bit of an impact in this world and bring back father and son relationships.
What do you think is missing in today's family dynamic?
Well, first, we're missing fathers, right?
Mhm.
68% of households here in the United States are, are missing a father, and that's a lot, you know. But overall, even when fathers are at home, they're missing the framework, they're missing the structure, they're not prioritizing their sons, they're not leading by example. And I say this often, uh, it's not only what a father, it's not only what he says, right? A father could, talk a big game, and he could say so many great things to his family and to his son, but in the end, it's his actions. Is he there for his son? Physically present, right? That is so important. So we've seen a huge disconnect in homes with fathers, and of course, we've seen a huge disconnect when there's just a mother being basically trying to be the father figure in the household. So there's quite a few elements that have dropped off and has caused really, really has caused a problem with fathers and sons in our society.
For the fathers watching this and being curious or intrigued about the Odyssey, what could you tell these men to get them on board to actually do this type of rites of passage with their son?
The first thing that the men are going to do is they're going to look and they're going to say, man, am I even in shape to get through this? Because the
Mhm.
Odyssey is not an easy program. It's going to be a difficult program mentally and physically, not to the extent, of course, as the Man of War Crucible, but
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult. But that's what you want. There is nothing better than to go through a difficult challenge with your son next to you. There is nothing better. And I can say this and I can attest this because even myself as a father, there hasn't been many times where I've been able to go through difficult challenges with my son side by side. So it is absolutely 100% such a life changing element that you can be part of. And when these men are being pushed alongside with their sons, and this is what you see in actually in the Odyssey, you see that the men they rise up because they don't want to leave their son behind.
Mhm.
Or sometimes their son is so far ahead of them, and then they start realizing that, man, maybe they should be more physically fit. Maybe they should be stronger in mind. Their
Mhm.
son is out there killing it, doing great. And meanwhile, they're dragging ass. So yes, there is some exposure when you come into this program, but you're not going to be prejudged, man. We're not going to judge you here. We want you to learn, we want you to grow, we want you to experience. And the whole goal here is that you start building a connection, a synergy between you and your son for you to be a better father and hopefully for him to see you as a better father and for him to be a better son.
I was speaking to a father last week, and he was telling me how his son is introverted. He's shy. He's on his phone, obviously, like screen time. What would you tell that dad to help push him to bring him to the like how does he deal with a son that maybe is not as active or physical as another child?
Well, frankly, that is a very common thing.
Mm,
There are so many young men who are extremely introverted that don't want to go out there and really challenge themselves. They're scared. They don't have guidance. And frankly, they just don't see the reason why. So, one of the best ways I believe truly that can move a child from that state into a state of action is for you, the father, okay, to be around more often, right? And for him to see you do things, right? Most kids, most younger men are going to learn more about their father, like I stated earlier, based on their actions.
mhm,
If their father is completely out of the picture, and even though the father is home, but the kid's locked up in his room, away, and there's nothing actionable there. The child doesn't see any movement from the father. He doesn't carry anything with the father, doesn't carry any weight in the household. That's how kids start getting really disconnected and then going back and becoming really introverted and divide themselves away from their father and their mother. So
mm,
techniques to use for that right off the bat. Get some takeaways here. Okay. First thing is whatever your son is doing that he likes to do, AKA 99% video games. Okay. That's usually how you start. Go to his room, sit down, play some games with him, show some interest in the video games. You know, I mean, I did that. I did it. I
yeah,
remember,
yeah.
my son, but the thing is, I kind of like some of the video games are real
Mhm.
cool, especially the samurai games. They're
Yeah.
pretty cool. So I sit down and sport games. I mean, I love like football and baseball and hockey and all that. So have something in common, build that bond, right?
Mhm.
And talk about games, get involved. The next thing is do something together. He may like movies. He may like to do something, get him out of the house, go to a movie. You know what? I went through a process when my one of my sons was being a little introverted, not to the point where he's locked in a room all the time, but to the point where I needed to be more in his life. He loves scary movies. Let's put it this way. His mother, okay, or my wife, like she doesn't like scary movies. She doesn't want to bring any scary movies or horror movies in the house. But you know what? I love horror movies. So does he. Something that
Yeah.
we have in common. Well, guess what? I buy tickets and I say, let's make this you and I today. We're going to go do something that quote unquote we can't do in the house. We can do it together. And I
Yes.
go out there and we go watch a horror movie together. We enjoy it, love it. We talk about it. That's how you start building connections, man. You have to start bonding in things that you both can connect with and then start moving it little by little, right? You can't yank, especially a teenager, out of his room and say, hey, do this and do that. No, you got to start bonding, taking the proper steps. And by the time you know it, now there's more interaction. There's more, hey, we're out here, we're doing this. Hey, you want to go to a concert? Hey, you want to go to a game? You want to go?
Yes.
And then you start opening the door. So step by step, but make sure that you start connecting with things that he likes and start so that way both of you could really start building a good relationship.
That's why I love the martial arts. And as you mentioned, you're also a lifetime martial artist as well. With martial arts, it's very easy to build that connection and to have something in common and to push each other and to make fitness an important aspect of both of your lives together and to train with your son. Like any other aspects of physical training with your own experience with your son. Like for me, it's Next month, I'm testing my son for his black belt. He's been training since he's 4 years old. He's 20 now, like going on 21. So we share a very special bond through the martial arts. Is there anything else that you did to create that bond with your sons?
Oh boy, martial arts was critical, right?
Mm,
When I had my school for many years, I have a picture where I'm giving my son his blue belt, right? And
mm,
I'm extending it with my hand down like that. And it was such an honor, right?
mm.
To level up my son and giving him different, his different belt and promotions. Um, yeah, I mean, th those were incredible. I had my daughter, my younger son also was part of it.
Yeah.
So promoting them, those are very, very meaningful experiences. And if you're ever lucky enough to be in that position like you, to be able to give a black belt to your son, showing tremendous accomplishment, and those are great. I mean, those are things that you could never replace, never replace. With that said, there are, certain things that we enjoy, and we look at, we say, hey, for example, one of the things that I want to do here is go to the Porsche racing school. They have a place in the Porsche Experience in Alabama, and I want to see maybe we can link it up and go to this particular school together, learn driving skills around the track, father and son. And I think that would be great. Physical, mental, and I think that type of connection. Listen, one thing I want to say, not every child is going to be an athlete. Okay. Not every child is going to be an athlete. As a matter
Mhm.
of fact, there are, I would say, maybe 50 to 60% of kids under the age of 13 actually do a physical activity. Okay. The other 40%, okay. And it's okay. And it's okay. I mean, my son has played football, he's played baseball, but once he crossed like 13, 14 years old, I'm talking about my youngest son here, he you know, he wasn't a big fan of all the other physical stuff, right? Like that's it. So the way that I look at it, and I feel that it's, you could guide your son, but when fathers are so like, you must do this, you must do this, you must do, you're going to break that connection. Okay. You can't you can't get to a level where your son cannot stand you because you're always trying to push him to do some physical activity. We have to be careful. Now, there is a balance. A father should be stern. He should be guiding the son. He should be on top of the son, like to a certain degree. But after a certain age, you start realizing whether the sun is leaning that direction or not. Usually 14, 15 years old, that's a good time for you to see, right? Because um, it, when you're 10, 11, 12, that's, you're doing what I'm telling you. You're going to martial arts. You're going here.
Yeah.
But when you're older, you got to be very careful because then you start breaking the bond, breaking the connection. So I just tell dads, listen, you just have to chill. You have to, you know, slow your roll a little bit. A lot of guys, well, I want my kid to play football. I want my kid to play baseball. I want my kid to play this, that. No, 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 no. You know, you just you have to chill. Okay. If your kid loves martial arts like yours through black belt, God bless him. That's awesome that you're on him and whatever, but you got to be very careful.
Talk to me about the importance of rites of passage, like something that's been lost, and all these ancient tribes had, like the at a certain age, the young boy would go and sleep in the jungle alone, like his first hunt, stuff like that. Like, why do you think that we've lost that type of importance of rites of passages in our young sons' lives?
Yeah, I think that we've lost that for many, many years. I mean, it's been forever, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
go back to the Greek Spartans, right? And they had the agoge. Agoge was, when they were very young, typically around 6, 7 years old, and they would start preparing for war. They would take them They would basically take them from home and start training them from a very young age. And they would have to do a lot of things like, believe it or not, steal, go out there and do bad things.
Mhm.
Um, but it wasn't because it wasn't the bad things. It was to see, okay, and for them to understand that they were doing is bad, but they needed to understand it, right? And to see if they had the capability of doing things like sneaking around. And their stories are pretty powerful.
Mhm.
And of course, as they built themselves, they started to build themselves in honor, in heritage and fighting heritage, and being strong in mind and body and spirit and learning how to work as a team. And then finally, once you crossed an age threshold, usually around 15 years old, 14 or 15 years old, your rite of passage was, man, you spent years and years going through this rite of passage so you can graduate and cross the line to be a soldier in combat. Okay, the same thing goes for the Knights Templar, for the Zulu warriors. Many times the Vikings were sloppy. They were good fighters, but they didn't have a real high structure, right?
Yeah.
Even the Celtics, they had their own rite of passage, but we missed that. We missed the young man growing up into a warrior, and there is no real defining moment or defining line where the young man goes from being a boy to a man. And I think the Odyssey is a great, great um, program to do that, to create that fine line, right? You get through this program, you've crossed to the other side of manhood. And that's usually what I tell the fathers here. I say, listen, this is a rite of passage for you and your son to cross the finish line together. But for him, especially, when we do we have a couple of different elements that we use in the Odyssey. And uh, when that son, uh, starts fighting and doing some of the things that are part of the program here. And I don't mean fighting like hitting each other. It's more of a tame down fighting concept where
Yeah.
we do something specifically to make sure that that young man learns how to get up and stand up on his 2 feet. When he does that rite of passage, that's called the Phoenix Rite. When he looks towards the sunlight, and I mean, it's a very powerful element, very powerful, very, very powerful. So I love the fact that we're able to push these young men through a rite of passage, and we've changed a lot of lives through the Odyssey.
What's your vision for the Odyssey i- in 5 years or 10 years?
Well, I would love to expand it all throughout Latin America and then going into Europe, and then of course probably going into the Middle East. That's
Mm.
my, but realistically a 5-year set, we want to take over. We've taken a good portion of Latin America, but I want
Mm.
to go now extend it into Europe, Italy, Spain, France. Actually, we're already in Spain,
Mhm.
but France, Italy. We want to go into certain countries that we feel there's a family in these European countries. There's a nice family connect, but a lot of the fathers are disconnected from their sons, and they need to revive that back, get that energy back. So I'm big into that, and I believe that we'll have Europe within 5 years. We'll have Latin America completely and Europe.
Do you think we can ever get the Odyssey in the school system that let's say when they're in fourth grade or fifth grade, that automatically the Odyssey like kicks in and they have to do the Odyssey to get to the sixth grade, let's say. Like, do you have a vision of that
Yes,
school
yes.
system?
When it comes to school systems, it's going to be tough public, right? Public
Yeah.
school systems, but I believe that there's private schools that will bring this forth. So one of
Yes.
the things that we are working in here is seeing how some of these shelter schools are can benefit from this program, and they're going to be state funded. So uh, we believe that within 5 to 7 years, there's going to be a lot of new schools popping up that want to really preserve this type of lifestyle, right? Where, it's a true conservative father, mother, family, that the father leads the household, the father connects with the son, he's building sons. So I truly believe that getting into these schools will make a huge difference in the way that the Odyssey is viewed by most people.
Yes, and in like I'm also getting traction with homeschooling. So parents who want to homeschool, and especially in the
Yeah.
US, I think US market has the homeschooling is very popular. I think
Yes.
if we can approach those homeschools, we can really create something powerful.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I haven't, there's, when it comes to, yes, first of all, we do have a lot of homeschoolers here in the United States.
Mhm.
Second of all, I believe that sometimes homeschooling, while it's great to a certain degree, it does the young men need interaction and physical challenges
Yes.
need to be pushed. So I believe homeschooling is good as long as that child is out there networking, making friends, communicating, being social, and pushing himself physically.
Hmm. In conclusion, Rafa, if we can be blunt and direct with the fathers that are watching this, maybe some closing comments for them of how they can get involved and why they should consider getting their sons at the Odyssey, whether it's here in Canada, in Florida, in Peru, in Brazil, all those areas. Why should the dads get their sons involved in the Odyssey program?
The Odyssey program is something very unique, is very different. It's not just taking your son to a ball game, not just taking your son to a movie. Okay.
Mhm.
This is a connection between you and your son while you're pushing, right, hard. Very rarely are you able to share such a dynamic, such a powerful experience with your son. When your son is able to see you as a father struggling, pushing, grinding, but you're right there next to him, shoulder to shoulder, his respect level goes from a 2 to a 10.
Mhm.
I will attest to that because we see that all the time. One of the reasons that fathers get so much out of this program is because now the respect factor from their son is up here. But guess what? Not just that, it works the other way too. You see your son in a different light and you start respecting him more when you're seeing him push. And some of these young men, they cry, they break down, and the fathers move to them with power and conviction and uplift them and empower them. And that kind of contact doesn't happen all the time, it barely happens. So when they graduate and the fathers embrace, they believe that they went through something special together, powerful, transformative, challenging. So they both build up this sense of high regard, of ultimate respect for each other. All I can tell you is that that will be transformative. It'll be the most transformative thing that you do to build that bond with your son for a lifetime.
Between the age of 12 and 17, that's the age we're looking for. I strongly believe that if you go too early or too late, you miss a great opportunity to impress upon them.
Yeah.
And I think our kids, our sons, are more impressionable between those two ages, 12 to 17. So it's important for dads to realize that they don't have all the time in the world to really impress and connect with them. At that age is the perfect time.
Yeah. The 12 to 17, 12 to 17 are critical years, critical years. I mean, that is really, even though most psychologists will tell you 4, 5, 6 years old, but we have seen it to be true that at 12 years old, that young man is crossing over into manhood. 13, 14, 15, and 16, and 17 is the outer boundary, but you can still make an impact at 17 years old, dynamic impact. So, those are the critical ages. Throughout that time point. Really, you have 5 to 6 years to really get down to business with your son.
Hmm. I think that the fathers watching this have gotten some key advice points that they can implement in their life with their sons. And the only logical step is to search out an Odyssey in their area and get involved with this powerful, powerful movement. I want to thank you again, Rafa, for taking the time to be here with us. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Martin, for your time. It was an honor to be on.
I'll stop there.